Before we start example 2 in section 9.2, I just want to review our rules. So looking at our rules, we see step 1 and 2 listed. Using our distributive properties, simplifying our equation. Again, in this next example, we're not going to worry too much about those. But the steps 3 and 4 that we see there that are in bold, that are highlighted, those are going to be the steps that we're going to use in example 2 as we start to go through it. So we're going to be working on getting rid of the number on one side of our equation, getting rid of the variable on the other side. Whatever the case may be, whether we have multiple numbers, multiple variables in our problem, making sure that we only have variables on one side of our equation and numbers on the other, and then we're going to finish these off by division. So we're going to start with example 2 at the bottom of this page. So in example 2, we are going to be solving these two-step equations. So what we see here for example A, 3x minus 5 equals 19. Our eventual goal is to get this x all by itself. So that means that we need to get rid of this coefficient of 3 and we need to get rid of this number of 5. Well, we want to get rid of this number that's over here first. So we're going to start by adding 5 to our equation. Right? We always start with addition and subtraction when we're working through these steps. So we're going to cancel out those 5's. Right? Negative 5 and positive 5 cancel each other out and we have 3x. 19 plus 5 is going to give us 24. Notice that what we have left is a nice one-step equation to finish this off. We want to get the variable all by itself. We have a coefficient left. We get rid of coefficients by dividing. So this is our step 4 that we see listed in those steps above. We're going to divide by that coefficient of 3. So on the left side we have x. On the right side, 24 divided by 3 gives us 8. Now, if we want to check this, going back to what we talked about in the previous section, remember we can plug this back in. So we can plug in 8 for our x, right? And we want to see if both sides of our equation, right, are indeed equal. So we want to see if 3 times 8 minus 5 equals 19. Right? Well, 3 times 8 is 24. 24 minus 5 is 19. Right? We have 19 on both sides, and so that one checks. So as we're going through, remember that checking your equations is always an option. I'm not going to do it for every single problem just to save a little bit of time, but it is definitely an option as we go through and you're working on your problems. Right, so let's look at example B. Right, for example B, we have 2y plus 1 equals 12. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that number that's next to our variable, but that's not a coefficient. So we're going to get rid of that positive 1 by subtracting 1 from both sides. Right, we have 2y equals 11. Now we're going to finish this off by dividing by our coefficient. Right, so what we have here, again, we can think about as an improper fraction of 11 over 2. We could think about this as a mixed number of 5.5, because 2 goes into 11 5 times with 1 left over. Or we could think about this as a decimal of 5.5. Again, as you're going through and working on the homework, just make sure you're entering your answers however they are being asked for. Alright, so we've got some more examples that are very similar that we're going to work through on the next page. So for C, we have 5 plus 4x equals negative 11. So we're going to start by getting rid of the number that's on our variable side, but not our variable's coefficient. So we're going to get rid of this positive 5 by subtracting 5 from each side. Right, we have 4x equals negative 16. Negative 11, negative 5, same sign, so we add. We get negative 16. Now we're going to divide by our coefficient of 4. X equals negative 4. All right, for D, we have 1 equals negative 9 plus 2w. We're going to get rid of our negative 9 to start with. Again, it's our number that's on our variable side, but not connected to our variable as a coefficient. 1 plus 9 gives us 10. So we have 10 equals negative 2w. Now we're going to get rid of our coefficient of negative 2 by dividing each side by -2. -5 equals W. All right, so let's continue with a few more. -2 equals -5a plus 18. So we're going to start by getting rid of this number. Again, that's not our coefficient. So we're going to subtract 18 from each side. -20 equals -5a. Now we're going to divide by our coefficient of -5. Right. Two negatives turn positive, so a equals +4. All right, for f, 4y plus 3 equals 3. So we're going to start by getting rid of this 3. Again, it's our number that's not our coefficient on our variable side. Those cancel, we're left with 4y. 3 minus 3, well, that gives us 0. Divide both sides by 4 to get rid of our coefficient. 0 divided by 4 is still 0. All right, G and H are slightly different. Notice that if we look at E and F, or the few previous ones in this example, we've had two terms that are only numbers, one on each side. And these last two, notice that we have two variable terms. Well, just like we move those number terms around in examples A through F, we can move that extra variable term around. So if we look at, for example, E, we got rid of the number that was by our variable term. Right? So we got rid of that extra number here and moved it to the other side. So looking at G, right, we want all of our variables to be on this side. So that means we need to get rid of our extra term that's on this side. But instead of canceling out a number like we did up here, we're going to cancel out a variable to move this variable to the other side down here. So I'm going to cancel out this -5x by using a +5x. Okay. So on the left side, 7x plus 5x give us 12x. Right? We're just adding our coefficients. 7 plus 5 is 12. On the right side, the -5x and +5x cancel, and we have just the number 24 here. Right now, just like the last few problems, right, we're just left with a coefficient to divide off and get rid of. So we're going to divide both sides by 12. 24 divided by 12 is 2, so x equals 2. Now for h, we're set up very similarly. 7 minus 3a equals -5a. Well, now in this case, we have two terms on this side. We want to get rid of this extra variable term over here. So I'm going to get rid of this -3a by adding 3a to both sides. So I have 7 equals -2a. Okay, we're going to divide by our coefficient of -2. Right, it doesn't divide evenly, so we can write this as an improper fraction of -7/2, a mixed number of -4 1/2, or excuse me, -3 1/2. Two goes into 7 3 times with 1 left over, or a decimal of -3.5. Again, as you're answering questions, just make sure that you are entering your answers in my math lab as the desired, in the desired form. So whether it's a fraction, a decimal, or anything along those lines.